That's like death by a million paper cuts. Why not face it, put the truth on the table, and deal with it? I believe the truth only hurts once, but when we don't deal with the truth of what's going on, it just eats away and it erodes. And it's
Hi and welcome to Lead Well. Today's guest is Ruth E. Andermatt, a Canadian self-leadership coach and the founder of Andermatt Consulting Experience. For more than 2 decades, Ruth has worked with executives, business owners, and emerging leaders, helping them lead with greater clarity, presence, and personal authority. Her perspective comes not only from coaching. Ruth knows what it means to enter environments where the prevailing model of leadership was not designed for her. She was often the only woman in the room and learned firsthand what it can cost to perform a version of leadership that does not truly fit. Today, we explore what self-leadership actually requires, how to recognize when adaptation has become self-abandonment, and whether it is possible to lead authentically when expectations are high and everyone is watching. Ruth, welcome to Lead Well.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Now, you have described performing a version of yourself that was never really you in your job. So what did that performance cost you?
Oh man, it at times it felt like it cost me my integrity. And what I realized is I was getting pulled over into this is how you must do it, this is what it requires, this is what's going on. And there are certain moments that suddenly the light bulbs go off. I think back to one moment when I was a director of operations and I was responsible for a staff of 70, and I had a new leader, new VP in my world who didn't hire me, who came on 3 months later after I'd been hired and said, there's that guy over there, that one of your managers, and he needs to be fired. Well, to me, that was completely out of integrity. He just wanted to assassinate this guy's character. And to me, I had a moment where I considered, well, do I do that? Is it going to cost me my job if I don't? And then I took a moment. I went, you know what? I don't care. I am not going to abandon me in this moment. And I wanted to make sure that I stood up for what I believe. So if you can imagine, there I am, a 30-something director, the only female in that role in Canada. And the manager was a guy that was in his 50s, not really impressed to have a woman as his boss. And I thought, well, what do I do? I thought I deal with this straight up. I get to the truth of leadership. And I went over to him. It was a flight over, not a short flight, but went to see him, and I sat him down and I just said, hey, I have been told I should fire you. And his head nearly snapped off. And I said, but I don't agree. And the only way we're going to combat this is you have to step up. I'm happy to help you, but you got to join me. And you can imagine, like, this came out of nowhere for him. But I knew I wanted to deal with the truth of leadership and be very direct and honest and give him the opportunity. And this guy, to his credit, totally rose up. We then had daily conversations. We talked about how things would go. And if you can imagine, in 90 days, his store was top store against plan in Canada. And imagine as well, we were paid against our plan, and his commissions also skyrocketed, and he was thrilled. But it took a huge leap of faith in that moment. Do I abandon myself, like out of integrity? Do I just do it to salvage my own job? Because what this VP also said to me is, if you don't fire him, I'll fire you. So my job really felt like it was on the line. And I just went, no. And that was not the corporate norm. And I didn't really have anyone to talk to about this. I just had to follow my own gut and step through. And I'm glad I did. And I also realized that happens a lot for people in the silence of. And over time, you eat it and you swallow it. And it affects you. And you get tired. And then you doubt yourself. And then you feel like you're performing for someone else and you're not very present to who you are. And I just realized in that moment, I drew the line that I was not going to compromise myself. I was not going to abandon myself. And fortunately, it worked out well on all levels. I had no idea, but I wasn't going to not do it.
So you were ready to also take the responsibility and take the consequences if it would not have worked out.
Well, what I would say to you is I realize that now with like 35 years hindsight. I just was so passionate it was unfair. It was inappropriate to deal with another human being like that. I didn't even really think about my own situation. I just went, that is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And I just took action. And now I look back and go, wow, it's amazing what we'll do when we're driven by passion and we've got some, the energy of youth behind you and going, nope, that's not fair. Nope, I'm not going to do that. So it was really cool to see it come into form. And only now am I actually, we live life forward and we understand it backwards. Only now am I actually realizing, wow, that was a bit of a risk, Ruth. Oh, okay. And it worked out. Okay, great. But I just I wasn't gonna have any part of that. Yeah.
So where would you see this fine line? Because I mean, I like the fact that we always say we have to be authentic and we have to be authentic in our roles. And I used to be in a VP role as well. But at the end of the day, I mean, I did have to adapt to the environment as well. So where do you see this line between adapting to the environment, adapting to the corporate culture, and keeping your own identity and not abandoning yourself?
That's a super powerful question. And it's a tricky one because it's not all or none. It's not like this is how it is and this is what you do. I really see for us, it is about we interface. We interface to our job. We interface to the people we're with. We interface with ourselves. And that to me comes back to self-leadership. Like I need to sleep with me at night. I need to know that when I rest my head on the pillow, I'm pleased with how I've shown up. It doesn't mean that I've done everything exactly the way corporation wants it, or I've denounced the corporation. My role really is to interface there. And how do I serve best the parties that are involved, the people that I'm leading and the company I'm working for? We need to remember businesses are in business to make money. So it's not disregarding what's required. And it's also not being, really invested in resistance. It's about showing up and saying, what does this moment call for? Am I present, or am I bringing a whole background of other things that have irritated me and now I'm investing it in judgment and reaction to this situation? I need to be really clean, look at this situation. If it requires a bit of pushback from me as an interface, great. And if it's me going, hey, Ruth, clean it up, what's actually going on here? Are you tired? Are you reacting? Or is it just what they're asking for seems bigger than usual? All of that needs to be encountered, and all of it needs to be integrated in how you do what you do. And we don't live in a world of black and white, and yet the world keeps asking us to be black and white. And ultimately, it's the people that matter, and that's the long term. And when you look at leading a staff or leading yourself, when we can lead ourselves, we can lead the world. But if I abandon me, I'm going to get really irritable in the process. I'm going to react to things. I'm going to say things perhaps that are not the wisest things for me to say. And in understanding, okay, I need to kind of figure out what it takes for me to be right here, right now. And I call that currency. Like it's my currency to be current.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's very powerful. And also you said this self-leadership. And when I was teaching at a business school, I asked the students often, well, who was the best manager that you have ever worked with? And interestingly enough, they all agreed that it was a person that was really good at self-regulation, at self-management, and people that would listen to others and people that would hear others. So from your perspective, when you talk about self-leadership, what does it look like as an observable behavior, and especially when there is pressure?
Well, a couple of things there, a few things. The thing to realize is that when we're under pressure, we simply become more of ourselves. So we need to notice when things start showing up, we need to listen. And I also will take you back when you're asking the question about who is your best leader. I often will say to people, if you're new to leadership or you're wanting to enhance your leadership, think of the people that were your worst bosses. They had the most to teach you, and listen in and go, okay, I want to be really clear what he or she did there and make sure I don't duplicate it. But when I bring it into that scenario where the stakes get higher, and there is an expectation that I need to be really clear, not to rush. I need to be super clear with myself, not to push the agenda, And when I feel that need to prove or justify, I need to actually come back a moment and say, hang on, hang on. What's actually occurring here? I need to be very current to the expectations. That's when we want to rush. We want to dust our hands of it and be finished. And that's usually when it takes more time to be present enough to say, Christine, tell me more about that. I'm not sure I really am clear on what your resistance is here. And that takes effort and it takes confidence to be able to say, we're not just going to rush through this. And I also know the more we include people in that moment, the greater the opportunity is for resolution. It's okay for you and I to agree. It's not okay for me to assassinate your character because I don't like how you're doing it. Often, if you're resisting me or you're resisting what the request is, I look and go, there's something I'm not seeing. And as a leader or working in a corporation, my job is to help people see more. And that's where we get into greater ideas, greater discoveries, greater perspectives. But if I abandon me in that moment and just conform to getting it done or mandating what's going on, I mean, I just got off a coaching call with a client and they need to make some shifts. And I said to him, but making gestures and shifts here, is that actually what needs to happen? It sounds like a hard no needs to occur. And he goes, you know what? You're right. That'll be hard. I said, but so will the gesturing be hard. That's like death by a million paper cuts. Why not face it, put the truth on the table, and deal with it? I believe the truth only hurts once. But when we don't deal with the truth of what's going on, it just eats away and it erodes. And we take it on and we take it on, and suddenly we go, I feel like I'm 1,000 pounds. I'm exhausted. Well, you've been selling out all the way along rather than drawing the line and saying, Christine, tell me, what is it that's not fitting for you here? Tell me what I'm not seeing, and then choose to really flush it out. And that's not easy. That place of conflict takes courage, and it doesn't have to be arduous conflict, but that place of me not abandoning me to be able to say, I can't see what you're saying, Christine, help me to see it. And even then, if I don't see it, it's okay to say, I don't see it, and now we need to move on with this. But for you to be heard in the process is super important, and we don't do that very often.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also not nice for the other person. If I'm not clear, then the other person is also left in the unknown. So it's hard, but it's definitely better decision. Now, you also work a lot with leaders that are more introverts, quiet. What is the characteristic of a leader that is not as expressive and as extroverted as you probably expected these days with all social media where everyone tries to be the number one for everything? So do we underestimate quiet leaders? Are they undervalued, or can this introversion really become a way to avoid visibility and conflict? Is it like a safety net for leaders?
Well, I would say yes, yes, and yes. I mean, well framed and well placed. So what I find is we have a version of leadership that's out there. And the leadership we're seeing is bold, expressive, tends to err much more on the masculine, not male, but the masculine side. You know, what I look at is we need much more of the masculine feminine integration. The masculine are the goals, the objectives, the KPIs, and the feminine is the collaborative, the community, the conscious conflict. It's not one over the other. It's about bringing both together. And the biggest part with introverts is they tend to go, I don't see my leadership style in the room. So they go, the only way I'm going to get through is to like boldly pierce the membrane here and join the game that they're playing. There's one particular client I think of, and she is a very powerful finance VP. And that's the environment she's in. And she was talking about being at this board meeting. And what she totally disagreed what was going on. She was trying to figure out how to put her 2 cents in. And what she realized, and it's something that we had worked with in the coaching session, is she just said, have we considered? That's all she had to say. And she placed it, and the ripples went out, and the conversation began. So realizing she didn't need to strong arm it, she didn't need to yell, she didn't need to pound her chest saying, watch me. She just went, hey, and they heard her. And it transformed the trajectory of the board meeting. When she came out, her CEO said to her after, that was outstanding. We got to the truth quicker. He didn't quite say that, but that's the nut of what he said. And she's like, it doesn't have to be hard work. Well, I don't have to show up like he does or she does. No, you need to show up like you do. And that aspect of, we look at introverts and we think they're shy. No, they're thoughtful, and they tend to be not needing to be the loudest voice in the room. And when they speak, with conviction, they are heard. And when an introvert trusts himself or herself, they really do get heard. And they allow people to bring their opinions forward into the room, and the greater good gets carried forward. But it really does take time. I don't mean years. I mean, it takes time in that moment to say, just a minute here. Here's something I see. And to know it's contrary to what's occurring in the room, but it does help people to listen differently. And it's super important and it's super powerful.
So would you say it's more difficult for an introvert leader to lead an extrovert team, or to have an introvert team working for an extrovert leader?
Boy, wow. Was there even an answer to that? Both of those circumstances are extraordinary. And ultimately, what I know about human nature is we all want to be seen and heard. So, and we get caught in the extroverted, introverted. We're all somewhere on the spectrum. As a good friend of mine, colleague says, I think we're all introverts. We just learn the extroversion because that's how we can grab more attention. I'm not quite sure on all of that stuff. But what I do know is no matter who the leader is, he or she needs to connect with their team. So I don't care if your team if there's a gender difference, if there's a generational difference, if there's a style difference in extroverted, introverted. The reality is, if you're leading, you need to connect with your team. It's not your team needs to connect with you. And that's a very ancient way of operating. I'm the boss. You listen to me. This is what we're going to do. If I want to drive this bus and I want you to contribute and we're going to go together, my job is to get each person on my team to know that I need them and see them and value them. And I'm going to challenge them, and I'm going to ask them for more. So does that boil down to someone being an introverted leader with a group of extroverts? Is it, those are nuances, but mostly it's the leader actually realizing the more they can include people, the future will take care of itself. But often in leadership, we get so focused on the future that we forget about the present.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, what I don't know about you, but what I find with my coachees is often that they have a hard time acknowledging or even first seeing that other people are different. And so the first thing, as you already said, it's like they have to figure out for every single person, how can I best build a connection with them?
Yeah. Well, and so often people are like, well, he doesn't get me. She doesn't get me. It's like, but that's your job to interface with them, help them to know who you are. I don't mean you need to tell them all about, well, listen, I like this for dinner and these are the sports I like to do. You need to actually show up. Like one of the things I find fascinating is when we want to really support someone in having achieved something. So the piece is, if I'm going to give you an accolade, I need to give it to you in a way that inspires you. If I'm someone, I don't know if you know about the 5 languages of love, but to me, it's a great transference into work. But if you're someone that's inspired by words of affirmation, then I give you words of affirmation. Or do you need gifts? Or do you need, public support? Do you need, I know for a lot of people, they go, oh man, there I was in the board meeting and they asked me to stand up and everybody clapped. I just about died a million deaths. Well, how would you like to be commended? I know for me, words of affirmation, but I'd like someone to write me a note and say, Ruth, this way really impacted me. It's private, it's personal, it's got longevity. But for others, they need it out loud. For others, they need it as a gift. For others, they need a hug saying, you're kicking it, Christine. Way to go. So we also need to know people and we need to know ourselves. And what we do, though, is we tend to talk to people the way we talk to ourselves. So if I'm a words of affirmation person, I'm naturally going to go to that place with you. And it's like, that may not land for you or you may not hear it. So it's taking that extra effort to go, who am I? Who is she? What is it when I'm wanting to give her positive feedback? what's the best way for her to receive it? We don't even think about that. And then when we have to offer negative feedback or constructive feedback, then we're really lost, because then it's like, oh, I don't want to do this. And it's like, it's one of the greatest gifts that we can do for our people is offer them insight. Like, as kids, we get feedback. We want to improve. We want to be seen. Somehow, as when we become adults, that all evaporates. We think, oh no, I don't need to give Ruth positive feedback. I don't need to. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And we need to do it often. We need to do it really often, because we are all ready for the negative constructive feedback. And I take every opportunity to say, listen, Christine, how you showed up here, that positively impacted me in this way. And that's very helpful to the greater good of what's going on in the organization. Super important. But we don't do it very often. I mean,
Yeah. And even less so gather feedback. I don't know about you. For me, when I started off working in corporate, I was in a trainer role, and I had to gather feedback at the end of each session, and I was almost dying standing there and waiting for the participants to fill in their reports. But now, whenever I do deliver a course or whatever, I love that question at the end, because yes, I want to know what I can learn from, but it's hard. It's hard at the beginning.
well, it is hard, because if we're not confident in our own competence, we start hoping for, and it's like, nope, this is who I am. This is how I show up. I mean, I'm laughing because I just had feedback from another podcast host that I did a show with, and he was introducing me to somebody else, and how he described me as Ruth's direct, unsentimental, and names things without softening. And I went, I like that description. I've not heard that before. And it really lands. And I wouldn't have heard it if I hadn't asked for some feedback. And I want to hear it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, what I say when I've been leading is, I say to people, listen, if something goes wrong, I want to be the first to know. That's the only way I can support you and protect you. But if I hear about it from somebody else, I'm not going to be prepared, and you're going to pay the price. And we tend to want to go, oh, that's not going to happen, or let's just pretend that didn't happen, or let's keep it a secret. Secrets don't work. They really don't work. Yeah.
And that gives me now an opportunity to ask about your dog, because I'm very much into working with animals as well. And so, I mean, our animals, they give us feedback as well. So what would you say that your dog, I think his name is Ryder, notices about yourself that a human colleague might politely ignore, or maybe even not get?
That's a very intriguing question. What I notice about Ryder is he has a quiet confidence. He doesn't wait for the feedback. I've never met a dog like him. He's also much bigger than I had anticipated. I was told he was going to be 60 pounds and he's 90. But what I notice about him is he does what he does. He believes in what he does, and he doesn't look for feedback. He really is the ambassador of joy. When we go out, he greets people. He can tell who needs to say hello and who doesn't, and he just honors it. And I look at that, and what he's been teaching me, and I don't know if it's what other colleagues don't see, but what he's really been teaching me is, it's in the simple moments that you show up and that you're consistent. Like, he is so consistent. He doesn't get fazed by things, and when he goes out, he stands his ground. If another dog comes at him, he won't engage, but he doesn't retreat. So he's solid there. He has a confidence where he goes, I guess today you and I aren't going to be best friends. Moving along. And he doesn't take it personally. He doesn't get warped out about it. And it's been teaching me to go, Ruth, not everybody's up for the nature of the way you coach or the way you support. That's okay. But for the people that are, man, we're going to go to the moon, because there is a lot needed right now on Earth. So, and the interesting part about him is, he was a COVID fail. He lived with another family and it didn't work out. And he came to me, and I'm going, my goodness, like, he is the easiest dog I've ever had. Like, he's probably the kindest dog I've ever had. And he's huge. I can't impress upon you enough. Like, usually when we talk about him, he'll come and join the conversation. So he's tuned into all of it. And it's that place of, dogs' lives are so much shorter. Every moment matters. They don't get flustered about the other things. And it's that helpfulness of, Don't make it something it's not. What does this moment offer? What does that moment offer? Take it or leave it, move along. And it's something that I have been really striving for, to make it life as simple as possible and let people be where they are and meet them where they are, but also be super clear in what I'm offering and how I'm living. And dogs just do that. And you can tell when you approach a dog, like, are they up for it? Do they want to meet you? Do they not? And it's like, okay, great. You don't want to? Okay, great. And you move along. Now, do you have a dog?
Not yet, I would say. I have 2 horses. Now, as I am always saying, when an interview comes to the end, I would love to go on with you forever because it's so interesting to talk
Me
to you.
too. Me too.
There is one question that I wanted to ask you at the end, and that is, what are you no longer willing to do in order to be successful now?
I'm no longer willing to attend to your agenda over mine, meaning I'm going to show up, I'm going to meet you, we're going to chat. And if our agendas mesh, align, excellent, let's move forward. If we're in contrast, that's okay. Carry on your way, I'll carry on my way. To me, it's very much about the truth of what's happening now. I want to get to the point. I want to dive in at that depth. I want us to connect at that level of what I know is possible. And to me, I'm really, really connected to living into that form and not foregoing. And I don't judge anybody else for how they want to do it, but I know for me, it's about that connection. And I look where we are post COVID, and we don't have the connection. So I want it to be meaningful. I want us to know. I want to look you in the eye, and I want you to look me in the eye, and I want you to say things that are real. Whether I like it or not, that's not the point. But I want to know it's not just a slick AI response. I don't want to see another pretty picture on social media saying, wow, Ruth, you're this. No, I'd rather you say, you know what, Ruth, you can push the limits. Sometimes you can. So for me, I'm really clear. I'm going to speak up. I want you to speak up. And I don't want it. Sometimes there's a sense of softening what your agenda is, but it's not compromising it. So that's what I'm no longer willing to give up.
Wow. Wow. And I wouldn't be surprised if you found that that made you even more successful.
Well, certainly now, and I look at my coaching practice, and I, especially with now going worldwide on Zoom, I have clients all over the world, and it is that place of, how do I speak my truth without it sounding really syrupy? How do I live into my level of leadership? And, I really believe that we need to work with coaches. Like, I work with a fantastic coach who's really taken me to edges, and we need to honor ourselves, and we need to have that safe place where someone sees us but doesn't tolerate and pushes us, but also has our back. And I see right now there is a lot that's possible. And for us to come forward, it's really healthy to have the support, and it's way more fun.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Now, Ruth, thank you so much for coming and sharing your insights.
Well, it's totally my pleasure. And what I would offer, if something I've said has pushed somebody and they go, I don't agree with that, Ruth, I'd love to hear from them. Or if there's something I have said, they go, I'd like to hear more. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm really open to having the conversation. So reach out, because it is about us being connected and beginning the conversation. And worldwide, there are amazing people, and we need to be connected. And without connection, we don't have anything. So.
Wow. There is nothing to add to that. Thank you so much.
Totally my pleasure.
This was Lead Well. Now, what is the one thing that you're taking away from this episode? Please share in the comments below, and do share the podcast with your friends and family, but only if you like it.